Exposed, 7 sinister ghost stories that reveal the haunted secrets of the cursed and unexplained. The chill in the air wasn't just the autumn change, it seeped into the heart of the dilapidated suburb where Liz lived, wrapping itself around her like a heavy blanket. For years, she worked night after night at the diner, tirelessly serving the same familiar faces who, rather than lifting her spirits, only reminded her of her dwindling dreams. Now, as Halloween approached, strange occurrences began to weave themselves into the fabric of her life. The flickering lights overhead sent nerves gripping her spine, and hushed whispers from the shadows echoed ominously in her ears. Shadows she once felt at home with now loomed large, distorting the faces of neighbors she thought she could trust. One evening, while wiping down the sticky diner counter after a spill, Liz's phone buzzed. It was her eldest, Ethan. Panic clawed at her chest as he blurted out that Clara, her youngest, was missing. Frantically, she raced to the nearby park, heart pounding like a war drum. "Clara!" she shouted, the name tasting like desperation on her lips. And then, as if conjured by her fear, Clara emerged from the darkness, cheeks flushed and darting about in playful glee. "Mommy! I was just playing by the swings with my friend." The words slipped like ice into Liz's stomach. There was urgency in Clara's eyes, almost aglow. Her laughter echoed where 3 local children had vanished years ago, swallowed by the very ground beneath their feet, leaving only questions behind. "Imaginary friend?" Liz questioned, dread pooling in her gut. The memories of disappearances flooded her mind, shadows of terror greasing her worry. Determined to shield her children, she attended the neighborhood watch meeting, gripping the back of her hair as she entered. Frank, the self-proclaimed leader, wore a facade of understanding, but his smile curled like a dark serpent. He leaned in close, whispering tales of their community's folklore, tales that chilled the blood in her veins. An acceptance of the supernatural tainted the room, eyes gleaming with something altogether sinister. Instead of reassurance, she found a chilling camaraderie enveloped in the dark, a pact of silence surrounding unspeakable truths. Each minute felt like a tightening coil around her chest. They weren't just watching, they were hunting. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Liz's world darkened as Halloween drew closer, taut with whispers of malevolent spirits lurking in the shadows, preying on innocents like wolves in waiting. The unfamiliar sounds from beneath Clara's bed slithered into her nightly routine, bringing sleepless nights filled with creeping dread. Figures danced just outside her windows, tangible threats pulling them deeper into despair. It was like the very bricks of her home were forgetting their duty to shelter, giving way to something darker. Eyes that once felt safe now held questions Liz had never dared to ask. Desperation forced her to dig into the town's past, buried crimes and tragedies twined like vines through the hearts of her neighbors, binding them together in a web of unspoken terror. What sinister secret kept them all occupied in their haunted community? The boundary between protectors and predators blurred. As she stood on the precipice of a lurking horror, Clara's voice echoed through the darkness. "Mommy, can we play with them now?" A drawing of her friend clutched tightly in her small hands, Clara's eyes sparkling with naive joy. Liz felt her skin crawl as a shadow flickered behind her, a dark presence twisting around her heart. She was ready to confront what had buried itself in their lives. Would the truth bring salvation or lead to their ruin? Liz stood on the brink of desperation as night cloaked the house in shadows. The air felt thick with secrets, each breath a struggle. Her heart raced, pounding a frantic rhythm against her ribs. Clara's laughter echoed like a siren call, innocent yet unsettling. "Mommy, can we play with them now?" The drawing. It lay on the kitchen table, small and creased. Stick figures with giant smiles. Clara's friend? Liz's gut told her otherwise. The child had always held an eerie interest in the dark. Liz's thoughts flew back to the rumors. The children that vanished, lost to whispers carried by the wind, leaving behind unanswered cries. Outside, the wind howled through the trees, every creak and moan sending icicles of dread down her spine. Was it just the wind? Or something more hungry? She glanced out the window, searching the dimly lit yard for shapes that shouldn't be there. The darkness seemed thicker, darker, as if it held its breath, waiting. "Clara, come here," Liz called, her voice strained as she bordered on panic. Clara emerged from the hall, her eyes gleaming with an unsettling brightness. "But Mommy, they're waiting," she insisted, her little fingers clutching the drawing tighter. The child didn't sound scared, she sounded excited, as if she were anticipating a grand adventure with unseen companions. "No more games," Liz snapped, her protective instinct surging. "I mean it." A low chuckle drifted through the air, so quiet Liz almost convinced herself it was her imagination. But then a chill swept over her, so cold it stung. She looked around, feeling eyes upon her, fingers of anxiety clawing their way up her throat. These were not the eyes of kids playing hide and seek. "I want to go outside," Clara said, her small face unyielding, almost pleading. "No," Liz responded sharply. "We stay inside until your dad gets home." At her words, a shadow flitted past the window. Liz's heart leapt into her throat. She rushed to the door, flinging it open against the howling wind. The yard was eerily empty. Not a creature stirred, only the rustling of leaves whispered along the ground. As she stepped across the threshold, she felt the chill too deep to be mere autumn air. Then, out of the corner of her eye, she saw Clara standing in the doorway, gazing into the dark like it was a playground. Time stalled, disbelief washed over Liz. "Clara," she called, voice trembling. "Get back here." A silhouette emerged slowly from the shadows, dark and twisted. It moved with an unnatural grace. Liz felt cold tendrils of fear wrap around her lungs. The thing's face flickered in and out of her vision, a blur of sharp angles that occasionally resembled a child. Just as quickly as it appeared, it vanished behind the trees. "Mommy, it's okay. They want to play with us." Clara giggled again, and Liz's world crumbled. A shattering realization slapped her against the wall of terror. These weren't just children. They were lost souls, trapped in the fabric of her town's darkest secrets. "Clara!" Liz screamed, forcing a breath through her tight throat. "Come back." But the girl stood frozen as the laughter of children echoed from the shadows, beckoning her deeper into the darkness. Then Liz saw it, the drawing in Clara's hand, depicting the very silhouette she'd glimpsed moments before. A plummet of ice slid through her veins. Something was manifesting here, a trap laid by the town's hidden horrors. "Mommy!" Clara's voice slipped into a whisper, almost enchanting, as her eyes lingered on the distant trees. The shadows grew thicker, closer. Liz realized she might not be strong enough to reach Clara in time. With everything on the line, she raced back inside, frantically searching for a way to anchor her child to the world of the living. On a hunch, she grabbed the old family photo of the three of them, desperate to pull Clara back from whatever malevolent force was lurking just out of sight. As she slipped on her jacket, she noticed it was shaking her hands, her voice, everything. But just as she turned, the laughter shifted from Clara's to something more sinister, something far older. Creeping through the door like smoke, wrapping around her legs, calling her into the depths. Liz stepped back, heart hammering. Secrets demanded to be unearthed. What if Clara truly belonged to the shadows now? "Mommy, don't leave me." The cry erupted in the night, splintering the darkness. Liz's resolve hardened. She would fight. But time was running out, and Clara was slipping away. Did the town want her daughter? Was it hunting for more? As the shadows choked the air around her, Liz took a deep breath, steeling herself for what lay ahead. The night was only just beginning, and horror awaited. What had been awakened? The hunt was on. Liz gripped the photo with white-knuckled intensity, feeling the warmth of the memories it held seep into her skin. But a deepening dread clawed at her heart. The shadows outside were not waiting, they were gathering. The walls of the house whispered, faint echoes of laughter layered over a sinister undertone, a cacophony of children's voices blending beautifully into a haunting melody. "Clara!" she shouted, forcing herself to cross the threshold again. The air outside was thick and impossible to breathe, yet she pushed forward. She felt small against the silhouettes that lingered, darting between the trees, taunting her with their persistent giggles. From the dim light spilling from the house, Liz caught glimpses of Clara standing entranced at the edge of the yard, fingertips brushing against her drawing. The moon illuminated her child's face, warped with an unnatural glow, as if the shadows were clinging to her. Liz's pulse quickened. Those were not the eyes she had spent countless nights watching over. "Clara, come back." Panic threaded through her voice, laden with fear. The wind howled in response, whipping her hair around her face like tendrils of darkness, pulling her deeper into the abyss. Each step toward Clara felt heavier, laced with dread, as she strained to reach her little girl, to pull her back from whatever wicked force had taken hold of her spirit. But Clara's laughter rang out again, piercing through the wind with a treacherous sweetness. "Mommy, please, there's so much fun." The child's voice dripped with temptation, and Liz felt a sickening twist in her gut. "Fun?" Liz echoed, her heart racing unforgivingly. "You don't know what you're saying." She forced herself to look beyond Clara, into the depths of the shadows that surrounded her child. In the corners of her vision, dark figures were gathering. They stood still, like grim statues waiting to pounce. Were they watching? Stalking? "Stay away from them, Clara. They're not your friends." Liz took another step, her breath coming in frantic gasps. She was terrified that at any moment, the shadows would reach out and snatch Clara away. But instead, it was the child who turned first, tugging on the edges of that grim drawing. "Look, Mommy. They said they need me." Something inside Liz snapped. "I said no." She screamed, rushing forward. She launched herself at Clara, praying she could pull her daughter back before it was too late. The world around her shifted. The air turned electric, buzzing as if charged by danger. Clara's giggles morphed into shrieks of laughter, piercing the silence in a chaotic harmony that filled Liz with dread. As Liz grasped Clara's arm, a horrid chill seeped through her fingers, a coldness beyond anything she had ever felt. A piercing laughter erupted from within the darkness, and Liz felt a presence looming over them. Turning instinctively, her heart shattered as she glimpsed the silhouettes materialize. They were children, yes, but inhuman, their faces twisted and deformed, each smile more menacing than the last. "Welcome to playtime," the echoing laughter taunted, sending a fresh wave of terror coursing through Liz's veins. "No. I won't let you take her," she rasped, clinging desperately to Clara, who now seemed oblivious to her mother's fear, lost in a trance closer to the figures. Suddenly, the wind picked up violently, ripping through the yard, urging the figures forward. Shadows swirled around Liz and Clara, churning and pulsing like a living mass of darkness. Visibility diminished as the night enveloped them, a void threatening to swallow her whole. "Mommy!" Clara cried out, twisting her head as if pulled by unseen hands. "Sever that bond." An ancient voice boomed from the depths, echoing like thunder, a promise of destruction. Liz's heart skipped. Sever that bond? Could she truly save Clara? A fierce determination surged to the surface, fogging the terror. But what if the darkness inside Clara already had been severed, twisting the bond into something unbreakable? In that moment, Clara vanished into a swarm of shadows. Liz's entire world imploded. Clara! She screamed, voice echoing into the night, desperation clawing at her throat as she stumbled into the heavy blackness. But it was too late. The night swallowed her cries, the shadows dancing with glee. The chill seeped deeper into her bones as Liz stood frozen, realizing the truth now. The hunt had only just begun, and footsteps murmured from the beyond. What awaited her beneath the surface, in the depths of this twisted nightmare? The air was thick, oppressive, wrapping around Liz like a vice. Heart racing, she stumbled into the shadows, her eyes darting around in search of Clara. Each breath was a labor, as if the darkness itself was choking her. Clara! Her voice came out strained, wavering in the heavy air. The darkness thickened as she pressed forward, every instinct screaming for her to turn back. But her desperation drove her on. Mommy? The voice, so small, echoed like a haunting lullaby, stirring the night air. It was Clara, but it didn't sound like her daughter. It was laced with that insidious echo, a mockery of innocence. Where are you, baby? Liz whispered, struggling to control the rising panic, the dread clawing at her throat. The laughter had faded, twisted into something sinister. A soft giggle danced around her, teasing just beyond her vision. The shadows flickered, warping into grotesque forms, each one filled with the gleeful malice of the shadows. Here we are, Mommy. Come play. Liz's heart sank, and a chill of horror spread through her. The shadows. They were calling to her. If she yielded, there would be no turning back. But she had to find Clara. She couldn't lose her again. Clara! Come to me! Liz shouted, pushing against the dark tide that threatened to drown her. She stumbled, catching her breath, eyes straining against the black cloak of night. She could feel their presence, the weight of unseen eyes upon her, judging, waiting for a mistake. Mommy, they say you shouldn't be afraid. Clara's voice was nearer now, and Liz spun around, her heart in her throat. Clara! Liz cried, squinting into the shadows. Where are you? The wind whispered through the trees, brushing against her skin like the fingers of the damned. Liz fought against the urge to flee, knowing that every second counted. You can't stay with them. They're not like you. The laughter returned, a chorus of twisted giggles erupting from the darkness, enveloping her in its dreadful symphony. Liz, join us. Clara wants to play forever. A sudden gust of wind lashed at her, a shrieking howl that rushed like a freight train through the narrow yard. It knocked her back, and she fell to her knees. Shadows swirled around her, and in that moment, she felt something cold brush her shoulder. She gasped, heart hammering, and instinctively swung her arm, trying to fend off the unseen specter. How could something so intangible feel so real? The coldness seeped into her very bones, filling her with despair. It's too late for you, Mommy. The children said, their voices layered and haunting. You cannot save her, not from our games. No. Liz shouted, rage igniting a flicker of hope. I will not leave you to their darkness. Fighting through the swirling shadows, she dug deep, calling on every ounce of strength she had left. Clara! Come back. You are stronger than them. For a moment, silence fell like a blanket, suffocating in its weight. Then, a rustling sound stirred in the darkness. Mommy! A wary voice, strained and stifled, tore through the air, as something collided with the darkness. Liz shot to her feet just as a pair of pale hands reached through the murk, small, innocent, yet trembling. Clara! But the hands were quickly yanked back by a swirling shadow, its grip unrelenting. No! Liz shrieked, lunging forward, adrenaline surging through her as she reached for her daughter. I want to let go. Suddenly, as if stirred from a deep slumber, the shadows recoiled. Liz felt a pulse in the air, like that of a giant heart beating ominously. The children's laughter turned into screams of rage. What have you done? One shadow wailed, the darkness shuddering violently. With each desperate grasp, time twisted. Moments stretched as Liz fought to reach Clara, who stood wide-eyed and trembling. It was a battle against not just the shadows, but something much darker, something ancient, something that thrived on fear. As Clara hesitated, the chaos of shadows thickened, threatening to tear them apart once again. "You are mine." The ancient voice thundered, launching a shockwave through the yard, sending Liz sprawling backward. Desperation ignited anew and, with a final push, she grasped Clara's hand tightly. But the ground shook beneath them, lawless and howling, the shadows swirling in rage. "Mommy!" Clara cried, her voice cracking. In the clutches of darkness, would love be enough to hold them together, or was this the moment they would be lost to the night forever? In a haze of confusion and terror, Liz felt the boundaries of her reality fading, collapsing into the very shadows stealing her child. "Please," a whisper, barely audible, slipped from her lips. "Don't let go, don't let the darkness win." But before Liz could summon the strength to pull Clara from the brink, the shadows began to dissolve, twisting into a blinding light that flooded the night. What would emerge from this chaos, hope or despair? The lingering question haunted the air, leaving them at the cusp of an unknown fate. The blinding light enveloped them, a jarring contrast to the suffocating darkness. Liz squinted, heart pounding furiously in her chest. Where were they? Where was Clara? "Mommy!" The voice cut through the light, high and desperate. Liz turned, straining to find the source. The brightness was blinding, swirls of white and gold swirling around her, illuminating the yard, but Clara remained elusive. "Clara!" she cried, frantically spinning in circles. The shadows were gone, but they had taken too much. The laughter still echoed in her mind, a cruel reminder of their near escape. Then, there she was standing just a few feet away, bathed in soft light. Clara looked small, vulnerable, tears glistening on her cheeks. "Mommy!" Liz rushed forward, but just as her hands reached for her daughter, the ground beneath them began to tremble again. The air was charged with an electric tension, and a sharp breeze ripped through, cold and menacing. The light flickered, wavering like a candle in the wind. "Stay back!" The voice boomed again, enraged and powerful. Shadows began to seep from the edges of the clearing, tendrils of darkness creeping beneath the radiant glow. "Clara, no!" Liz shouted, scrambling to close the distance between them. But Clara, caught in a web of light and dark, hesitated. The shadows writhed at her feet, imploring her to join them. "Mommy, they said they'll make me happy." Clara's voice trembled as she stepped toward the encroaching darkness. It was a siren call, whispering promises of play and fun, stirring a gnawing fear deep inside Liz. "No! Clara, please! Don't listen to them." The shadows writhed like snakes, coiling and hissing, their insidious voices weaving through the air. "Join us! Let go of your fears! We'll show you a world of wonder." "Clara!" Liz's voice broke, filled with raw panic as she instinctively reached out, but it felt like they were separated by an ever-expanding chasm. The brightness around them flickered again, and with each heartbeat, Liz felt the light dim, like the last gasps of a dying star. "Fight it, Clara. You are stronger than this." But the little girl's feet shuffled toward the darkness. She seemed entranced, caught in their spell. With her heart in her throat, Liz lunged forward, grasping the air where Clara had just been. Suddenly, the light burst forth, brighter than before, pushing back the shadows with a deafening roar. Clara's eyes widened, filled with terror as she felt the pressure of the shadows clawing at her ankles. "Mommy, I can't!" she cried, and it pierced Liz like a dagger. "Yes, you can!" Liz shouted, again reaching for her daughter, her fingers just brushing the edges of Clara's dress. And then it happened. The shadows unleashed a surge of dark energy, a crushing wave that hit Liz like a freight train, forcing her to her knees. The laughter grew sinister, reverberating inside her, turning her blood to ice. You are weak. The voice bellowed, and this time it was accompanied by a cacophony of wails, anguished cries that shook the very ground. No! Liz screamed, through clenched teeth, forcing herself to stand again. She pushed against the agony, feeling her spirit ignite with a fierce determination. She had to free Clara. With an almost primal scream, she lunged once more, using all her strength to break through the darkness clawing at her. In a final desperate effort, she shouted, "I love you, Clara. You are not alone." The ground shook violently, shadows swirling wildly around them, battling the encroaching light. Clara's face flickered in panic, torn between the silky whispers of darkness and the raw power of her mother's love. In that moment, the shadows recoiled as though struck, and Liz felt the briefest spark of hope. Would Clara find her strength? Would love prevail? But as the world twisted and turned violently, Liz felt herself being pulled not towards Clara, but into a vortex of darkness. What lay beyond that vortex? A desperate choice awaited them: light or shadow. Liz braced herself, the battle far from over. The darkness swallowed Liz whole. It was as if she had been thrown into an abyss, the air thick with dread. She gasped as the icy fingers of shadow coiled around her, pulling her deeper, wrapping her in a blanket of despair. The sounds of Clara's pleas faded, replaced by whispers that clawed at her sanity, words intermingling with sinister laughter. "Join us, relinquish your hopelessness, become one with the shadows." She fought against the tide of despair. Memories of Clara's laughter danced at the edges of her mind, like flickering flames in a storm. "I can't give up on you, Clara," she cried out, her voice echoing into the void. She pushed against the oppressive weight of darkness, feeling it pulsate around her like a living thing. Just when she thought she would be consumed, a flash of blinding light erupted in front of her. It was so bright it stung like ice water thrown in her face. Liz shielded her eyes, squinting through the brilliance. She felt herself pulled toward it, the fabric of the shadows ripping apart, unraveling like fabric snagged on a thorn. With an abrupt plunge forward, Liz broke free from the vortex. She landed not on solid ground, but in a place that felt wrong, a desolate playground, twisted and worn. The swing swayed eerily with no wind. The rusty slide loomed like a giant's tongue, waiting to swallow her whole. Broken glass crunched beneath her feet, the scent of decay wafting through the air. "Clara!" she shouted again, trembling with anxiety. Where was she? What had happened? "Mommy!" The sound came from the creaking merry-go-round. Clara stood there, small and frightened, her fingers gripping the edge tightly. The skin around her eyes was shadowed, dark veins snaking across her pale face, a sight that made Liz's heart drop. "Clara!" She sprinted toward her, heart racing, but the ground began to quake underfoot. The merry-go-round spun slowly at first, then accelerated, blurring the edges of the world around it. Liz steadied herself against the rusting metal, breathing hard. Behind her, the shadows were gathering again, creeping from the periphery of the playground, clawing at the light. "Mommy, help!" Clara cried, her voice breaking through the noise of the twisting metal. But as Liz reached out, the merry-go-round tilted, pulling Clara into its swirling chaos. "No! Clara!" Liz dove forward, but reality bent and warped around her. The shadows seeped closer, whispering promises of pain and despair. "Let me go. You don't belong here, Clara. Fight them." As if summoned by her words, Clara's face twisted in determination. She stopped clinging to the edge, her small body illuminated by a golden flicker that erupted from her, the shadows hissing angrily. "Mommy! Run!" Clara yelled, stepping toward the core of the spinning madness. "No!" Liz cried out, her heart pounding in her chest. The merry-go-round lit up for a brief moment, revealing a space where the darkness could not reach, yet it was shrinking. "Stay in the light. Keep fighting, Clara." But the shadows surged forward, pressing in, hungry for the last fragments of hope and love. "Give in." Their rasping voices echoed, slithering into Liz's ears and her mind. She felt them wrapping around her heart, squeezing tighter. The merry-go-round spun faster, Clara's terrified face caught between shadows and light. It felt like a dream, surreal and terrifying, yet everything was painfully real. Liz took a breath, a surge of resolve coursing through her like fire. She couldn't lose her daughter, she wouldn't, no matter the cost. Clara. I'm coming for you. But before she could move, the ground beneath her shattered, and she plunged once more into the darkness. Where would this lead her? What lay waiting in the shadows for them both? The grip of the sinister laughter returned, wrapping around her like chains, and Liz felt the weight of the darkness dragging her down. Would the light ever truly return? Liz fell endlessly, the sensation twisting her stomach into knots. The laughter morphed into a cacophony of voices, each one vying for her attention, whispering her darkest thoughts, dredging up her deepest fears. You're nothing without her, she'll never forgive you, you belong here with us. Panic surged as she braced for impact. But instead of hitting solid ground, she tumbled into a shadowy void, her body floating weightlessly, surrounded by swirling black mist. She could barely breathe. Images flashed around her, Clara's smile, the two of them playing in their sunny backyard, bedtime stories, baking cookies, all memories now distorted, twisted like the playground. Clara! She screamed, desperate, but her voice felt swallowed by the gloom. Suddenly, a figure appeared out of the mist, tall, dark, and sleek as obsidian. Eyes, like burning coals, drilled into Liz. It felt familiar, like a reflection of her own despair, but darker, somehow wrong. Where is the light? Liz's voice trembled. The figure didn't respond, it only pointed deeper into the void, a dark invitation beckoning her forward. Gritting her teeth, she knew she had no choice. Liz started to move, each step heavy with fear, the shadows swirling around her like a tempest. With every step, her resolve weakened, the air thickening with a smothering dread. Clara, she whispered, each utterance laced with anguish. She stumbled forward, her thoughts racing. I will find you, I will not leave you. At last, she reached what felt like a boundary. A wall of swirling darkness pulsated before her. Liz pressed her hands against it, feeling a jolt of cold despair rush through, like icy water pouring into her veins. She closed her eyes, willing the darkness to part. Please, I just want to save her. The shadows erupted around her, swirling violently. No one escapes. Not with hope. They shrieked, the voices growing louder, each one cutting through her like a knife. In the midst of the chaos, Clara's voice broke through, clear and unwavering. Mommy. Please. You have to break through. Drawing from the sound of her little girl's plea, Liz opened her eyes, fierce determination blazing brightly within her. She slammed her body against the dark wall, pushing with everything she had. The shadowy energy stung her like 1,000 needles, yet she stood her ground. I refuse to let you take her. With a primal scream, she bashed through the shadowy barrier, light pouring in, expansive and warm. It felt surreal at first, each pulse of light throwing back the darkness, illuminating grotesque faces that shrieked in fury. They clawed at her, but she pushed deeper into the brilliance. Suddenly, she found herself not alone. Clara emerged from beyond the glow, eyes wide, fear etched into her delicate features. Mommy! She shouted, reaching out as shadows pooled around her like a tidal wave. Clara! Hope surged within Liz's chest, igniting her like a match. She could feel the light in her bones now, bright and blinding. I'm here. Hold on to me. But as she rushed towards her daughter, the shadows recoiled and withdrew, forming a chilling barrier between them. Overwhelming terror wormed its way into Liz's heart. Clara! She screamed, her voice mixing with the cries of the shadows, both pleading and threatening. Find the truth, Mommy! Clara shouted, frantic, her image flickering like a dying bulb. It's the only way. No. Don't leave me. The shadows roared, crashing against Liz, dragging her back toward the darkness. She had to act. Time was short. With every ounce of strength, she pushed against the tide of despair. I will find the truth. The shadows wailed in anguish, the air thick with their hatred, and as Liz fought back, the ground beneath her trembled and split once more. As she was pulled down, an idea sparked in her mind: would confronting her own memories be the key? What truth lay buried deep within that she had long buried, that could extinguish the darkness? The shadows laughed wickedly, and their grip tightened. You can't escape what you are. What you did. Would facing her past be the only way to save Clara? Would she be strong enough to withstand the light? The abyss began to swallow her in earnest, darkness wrapping around her throat like a noose, and just as despair threatened to overtake her, the light flickered again, blindingly bright, hinting at the truth just out of reach. What would she uncover in the depths of her own heart? Liz felt the pull of darkness tighten like a vice around her chest, squeezing out her breath. The light was fading, almost like the glow of a dying star. Clara! She roared, desperation clawing at her throat, but the shadows only laughed. Foolish child! You think you can escape your fate? They surrounded her, each voice dripping with malice, echoing her own lingering doubts. You are nothing without her. This is where you belong. The ground shook violently as if the very fabric of reality was unraveling. Liz's heart thumped painfully against her ribs. What am I? She screamed into the void. The mocking laughter hushed, leaving an eerie silence that rang in her ears. Then, from the darkness, a soft voice whispered, "Truth is what you make of it." The figure that had pointed before emerged again, stepping forward as part shadow, part substance. The features were obscured, but Liz recognized the outline. Her knees went weak. You face the truth you have buried. The figure extended its hand, beckoning her closer. The voice was smooth, yet it cut like glass. What do you fear most? A mother always knows her child. Images raced through Liz's mind, shadows of memories, marred by regret. She saw herself, Clara, as a baby, a darkened hallway, a crash. The dull echo of an accident faded into the shadows of her troubled thoughts, bile rising in her throat. No, I can't. I won't. The figure shifted, its burning coal eyes locking onto hers. Face it, Liz. Find the truth that lies beneath your guilt. Panic crashed over her like a tidal wave. She stepped back, but the shadows surged, dragging her down into the swirling void. Clara! I'm coming! She shouted amidst the cacophony. Mommy! No! Please! Clara's voice rang out, desperate and pleading. Liz squeezed her eyes shut and took a deep breath. The truth, she murmured, and the moment she spoke, a rush of warmth enveloped her. The shadows recoiled, a searing light pouring in, illuminating the swirling darkness around her. Memories danced in the brightness, teasing out a vision: a day at the park. They had been laughing, twirling, carefree. Clara's sweet giggles echoed, wrapping around her like a bomb. I would do anything to protect you, she vowed fiercely. I want to let you go. But just then, a sharp crack of thunder made her jump. The light flickered. She glanced back at the abyss. The heart of darkness was shifting, evolving, eyes peering out from the depths, hungry. You cannot escape. The voices howled. You'll pay for your sins. The ground beneath her cracked wide open, revealing a chasm swirling with grotesque figures reaching for her, mouths stretched wide in silent screams. Liz felt the weight of 1,000 hands grasping at her, pulling her into the nightmare. Mommy! You have to break free. Clara's plea broke through the chaos yet again. Her tiny silhouette shimmered at the edge of light, far away yet so achingly close. With every ounce of will left in her, Liz charged forward, her heart pounding in her ears like war drums. I will find you. I will break this curse. The shadows shrieked, frantically clawing at her, but they were losing ground. The radiant light surged, blazing brighter as she pressed through. The barrier between her and Clara began to crack. Hope ignited inside her, the hope of a mother fighting for her child. Just a little longer. She shouted, her words carving through the darkness like a sword. But just as she felt the darkness receding, a bone-chilling laughter echoed from deep within the shadows. Peace comes at a price, Liz. Are you ready to pay? In that moment, the air grew heavy with an unknown weight, and the truth echoed louder and louder in her mind. The light flickered once more, revealing previously hidden horrors, visions of her mistakes writ large. With her heart hammering against hope and fear, Liz realized she was on the edge of her greatest sacrifice. Would the truth be worth the cost? As the shadows surged one last time, Liz's fingers grazed Clara's. But in an instant, a chilling force yanked Clara away into the void. The last thing Liz heard was her daughter's terrified scream, "Mommy!" Would she face the darkness again to find her? The shadows roared, hungry for her next move. The darkness throbbed with a pulse like some ancient beast awakened from slumber. Liz could feel it constricting around her, squeezing tighter with each panicked breath. A metallic taste filled her mouth, terror gripped her throat, and the world blurred into an unfocused cauldron of swirling shadows. Clara. Her voice cracked. She felt the weight of despair settling heavily upon her, an anchor dragging her deeper into the abyss. But as she teetered on the brink, a whisper drifted across the void, cutting through her panic. Seek what you buried, Liz. Only then will you find freedom. A flicker of clarity ignited within her. She pushed against the darkness, wading through memories, each one sharper and more vivid than the last. There was the familiar scent of Clara's hair after a bath, the feel of small fingers clutching her own. But there were darker memories too, the moments she wanted to forget, the ones intertwined with loss and fear. Out of the depths, the figure appeared again. No longer a vague shadow, but a formidable silhouette cloaked in malevolence. Remember, it hissed, its voice slithering around her. The greatest monsters lurk within. Liz shuddered, recalling the car crash. The screech of tires. Clara's laughter silenced. That horrible moment when nothing would ever be the same. The tears ran down her cheeks as regret surged like a wave, drowning her hope. I thought I could save her, I never meant to, it's all my fault. The shadows laughed again, resonating with her guilt. She is yours. You brought her into this. You must accept your price. Waves of grief consumed her. She felt herself faltering, her resolve fraying. But then she remembered Clara's voice, a lifeline tethering her back. Mommy. You have to fight. In that instant, a surge of defiance roared within Liz. Fueled by desperation and love, she focused on Clara, the child she had vowed to protect, the daughter she must save at any cost. I will find you, Clara. I promise. With renewed vigor, she charged into the heart of darkness, every step a rebellion against despair. The shadows roared, clawing at her heels, as the darkness shrieked in rage. The light pulsed brighter, overwhelming the gloom, blinding her for a moment. She felt the barrier between her and Clara shudder like a fragile dream. But just as the fissure widened further, a hand shot out from the void, grasping at her wrist with icy fingers. Liz, don't. If you cross that line, it may be the last thing you ever do, the shadow figure warned, its voice low and menacing. Let me go. She shouted, wrenching her wrist free, determination igniting within her once more. But the shadows tightened their grip, the entities swirling around her, eager to reclaim their lost prize. Your pleas are meaningless. They echoed in unison, a cacophony echoing across the void. You cannot diminish the monster within. You can't outrun yourself. Liz staggered, caught in the chaos. The ground trembled beneath her, a cruel reminder of the weight of her past. She realized the truth, the chase wasn't just about saving Clara, it was also about confronting her own demons. Could she conquer the horror within? Mommy. I'm scared. Clara's voice rang out again, piercing the suffocating silence that wrapped around Liz like a noose. It was a call she couldn't ignore. She had to dive deeper, not just into the darkness to rescue her daughter, but into the depths of her own guilt, her own betrayal. The shadows quivered, sensing her resolve, hissing venomous threats of despair. Face it, Liz. What if the truth sets you free only to condemn you? And in that moment, she understood the agonizing truth. The only way out was through. With tightened fists and a heart racing against the void, Liz plunged forward into the swirling darkness, the echo of Clara's cry pushing her on. Hold on, Clara. Just hold on. But as she dove into the fray, the universe twisted and the shadows erupted into chaos, curiosity laced with dread. Would her journey through the darkness unveil salvation or something far worse? The darkness waited with bated breath, its hunger insatiable. Liz plunged deeper, the void enveloping her like a shroud, swirling shadows whispering lies that clawed at her sanity. You cannot rescue her, they taunted, laughter filling the air like the tolling of a funeral bell. Every step was a battle, the darkness pressing against her like 1,000 hands trying to drag her under. But amidst the chaos, a flicker of Clara's laughter rang out, pure and innocent, breaking through the din. Liz's heart surged. No matter how deep she sank, she couldn't forget. She pushed forward, driven by the image of her daughter's smile. I'll find you, Clara. I swear. The darker shadows recoiled, hissing in anger. They knew she was coming, knew the bond of love she carried like a weapon. It ignited something raw within her. You don't own me. You don't own Clara. Each word was a declaration, emboldening her trembling limbs. Suddenly, the ground lurched beneath her, revealing a vast expanse of swirling memories. Scenes from the past spiraled around her like an endless gallery, good moments, small joys, and the dark stains of regret. Look how far you've fallen. The shadows crooned. You can't change the past. But Liz fought against the tide, her screams echoing fiercely into the darkness, fueling her resolve. I am not defined by my mistakes. I am a mother. I will not let you win. Through the chaos, she saw the glimmer of light amidst the creeping dread. It beckoned her forward, a lighthouse guiding her home. With one last burst of fortitude, she charged toward the light, heart pounding. Memories flashed: Clara's first steps, the joy of random dance parties in the living room, bedtime stories that ignited dreams instead of nightmares. Clara, she whispered, tears streaming down her face, washing away the fear. You're my light, and nothing will keep me away from you. The shadows shrieked in fury, clawing at her as she surged ahead. You are meant for this darkness. They howled. But Liz, spurred by the pure love she felt for her daughter, felt the energy around her shift. The light brightened, illuminating her path. Then, in a burst of blinding radiance, Liz broke through. She stumbled, gasping as she found herself standing in a clearing one she remembered from countless visits with Clara. The graveyard where they'd attend memorials for lost children lay ahead, each headstone whispering twisted truths of lives stolen too soon. It had all started here. Mommy? Clara's voice lingered in the air, both distant and close. Liz turned, eyes wide, desperate to find her. Clara. The world around her fell silent, creating an eerie stillness that held its breath. Shadows loomed, threatening to reclaim her, but she stood firm. And then she saw her, Clara, standing by one of the stones, a thin layer of shadows swirling around her like a protective cloak. Her child was glowing, as if a light from within fought against the encroaching darkness. Clara! She cried, rushing forward with all the strength she could muster. Mommy, help! Clara stretched out her small arms, fear mingling with hope. Liz reached for her, the shadows curling around her ankle, trying to pull her back as Clara's form flickered between light and darkness. Liz felt the shadows' grip tighten, but she wouldn't let them win. You listen to me. she roared, summoning her inner strength. You will not take her. The shadows recoiled at her declaration, screeching in rage. But Clara shimmered brighter, her voice unwavering. Trust in love, Mommy. The truth will set us free. With that, the light surged around them, illuminating the shadows that shrank back in fear. Liz grabbed Clara's hands, the warmth of her child grounding her. We can do this together. Together, they stood against the darkness, the silhouettes shrieking in desperation. As love flooded the space between them, the shadows began to falter, unraveling like old ropes. Liz felt the warmth of her daughter's spirit mingle with her own, forging an unbreakable bond. Now! Clara cried, and together, they pushed forward. A blinding force erupted from their joined hands, radiating love and warmth that ignited the shadows into furious bursts of despair. We're free! They yelled together, their voices blending in harmony. With one final cry, light swallowed the darkness whole, the shadowy figures dissipating like wisps of smoke. Liz felt the weight of regret lift, replaced by pure, unyielding love. As the world reformed around them, they stood together under the clear night sky, stars twinkling overhead. Liz could feel the warmth of Clara beside her, the bond they shared pulsing with vitality. Mommy, Clara said, beaming. We did it. We're free. Tears streamed down Liz's face as she hugged Clara close. Yes, my sweet girl. Together forever. No more shadows would haunt them. They had faced the darkness and emerged into the light. And as they shared their first breath of hope, Liz could finally say goodbye to fear. The whispers of the lost may linger in the town, but they wouldn't let the darkness define their lives. They were free, and the night glimmered with promise as mother and daughter stepped hand in hand into their new future. Now, if you love this story and want to dive into more exclusive tales, you need to subscribe now. You don't want to miss upcoming adventures that will keep you at the edge of your seat. And smash that like button now to feed the algorithm, it really helps the channel and shows your support. Flood the comments section with your thoughts and reactions to this chilling conclusion. What did you think? How did Clara's journey resonate with you? Lastly, don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Join the family and let us keep the stories alive.